Welcome to Laugh and Learn with Katie Eades, your chief owl at Owl Professional Development and Coaching and Podcasting and all things exciting. Today we have Kelsey Aida back on the podcast, our author and transformation facilitator, here to teach us about retreats. Kelsey, what are 3 things we're going to learn today, not just about your retreat, but just retreats in general as well? And when it comes to Kelsey aiding our life.
Yeah, I would say I'm sure we're gonna touch on like the transformative power of attending a retreat and just like getting out of your daily life and how that really lends itself well to transforming yourself or your life, just getting out of the daily rut. Radical self-love is a big part of my retreats. So I'm sure we will touch on self-love being the key to all manifestation as I've been rebranding self-love in that way. And Kelsey Aida in your life is just manifesting the crap out of your life and experiencing everything you want to experience. So, also here to talk about that, as always.
Mm. I love the manifesting the crap out of your life. Some of us do need to manifest things out, not necessarily manifest things in. Usually, when we think of manifesting, we think of bringing something to us. I like that. And as the regular old generator of the human designs, I like to remind people that generating and manifesting do look a little different. When you talk about manifesting a book in your life, the process that you describe it is still very much a way to manifest as a turtle. But because I'm a turtle, I feel like I can't manifest unless I manifest in sequential order.
Mm, understood.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
feel like
how do you
manifesting
balance
too.
that? Like,
Well, I feel like
generating.
there's 2 different ways to manifest. Like under the
Mhm.
manifestation umbrella, there's like creating is like one side, and then attracting and receiving is like the other side. And in both
Mm.
instances, you're, like, using intentionality to bring something forward or to bring something in, but it's like one has more of an energy where you're making it happen, and one has more of an energy where you're magnetizing it to you through your energy. So there's kinda, like, 2 different ways to look at manifesting and approach it and do it.
That makes a lot of sense, I think, where people get confused because attracting and receiving for generators, you included, is that we respond and we wait. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah, well, me too as a manifesting generator. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel more like a manifester sometimes, and I definitely have an impulse to initiate because there's a part of me that has
Mhm.
this pressure to always be creating, but really when I create my best things, it's in response to something that came to me or something I heard or something I learned or something I saw. So, yeah, it is interesting to make the distinction.
And during the because we were spinning on the rock, like, all of us end up being a manifester, generating manifester as we go through that. You have really struck a pretty good balance of just even being able to recognize that the best things that you generate are in response to. How do you curb your impulse to initiate when you know that you're not really responding?
I don't. That's something I'm learning to do in more recent days. I usually just create everything I feel like creating, and then some stuff, like, works really good, and some stuff just works, like, a little, you know? So I really just can't stop myself yet, but I'm learning how to, like, just because I can doesn't mean I should, and, like, just because it is a great idea, that doesn't necessarily mean it's, like, for me. Like, I wish there was a way to, like, market and sell my ideas off because I have so many great ideas, but I know that they're not all meant for me to execute on, but I, like, want to because it's such a good idea, and I have, like, FOMO about it. I'm like, "I should execute on this idea. I could do it," but it's like, does that mean I should do it just because I can? Or, like, is my energy better spent focusing on my mission and my purpose and my impact versus getting sidetracked by all these other great ideas, which I could easily and often do get sidetracked by.
The way you just described our 6124 channel in our head is just exactly it. I just don't have gate 20, so I'm not trying to create all the time. I'm pretty happy being a
Yeah.
turtle, except when it's activated, which it is now. I I do it does make for some good laughs and podcasting for me when
Yeah.
it's activated for sure. It's why I love being around your energy. And your energy alone is really enough. We're going to talk about that radical self-love and transformative power here in a minute, but your energy is the entire integration center, the entire backbone of self-empowerment.
Yeah. I've
And
noticed that from working with people, even if I don't say anything, just, people being in my presence or being like, when I work with people one-on-one or people come to my house and stay with me, they always leave, like, initiated, activated, changed, upgraded in some way, and I'm like, "Damn, I didn't even have to try that hard. That's crazy."
you're just being yourself. When we have the 5-1 group, when we meet, something you said that has really stuck with me, so you're very sticky with this. I also speak for that self-empowerment. I have all of that same energy minus the connection to my throat. And
Mm.
as you shared, as I love myself more, the world experiences love more. We can only really raise our own vibrational field. We are in all those ideas for us that flow in. We do also need to sell all of our ideas because they are not for us. That's why coaching and consulting and development is an area we should be in. But we really do make the world a better place when we are personally happier, when we are personally earning more. The world is a happier place in part because of the work we do, which literally makes people happy. But you really speak well to there's a difference between being selfish and just being more self-like, but you really truly recognize that when you're selfish, that the world becomes a more selfless place as a result.
Yeah, it's true, and I like to, like, rebrand the whole selfish thing to, like, I think the real definition of selfish, if we looked it up, is like being so self-involved that it's like to the detriment of other people. But when you're like
Mhm.
self full, and not full of yourself in a conceited way, but when you're focused on yourself, when you're self-centered in a healthy, self-loving way, actually your cup just overflows into everyone around you and it benefits the whole. So it's literally the opposite of selfish, but you are still focused on yourself and your needs and your preferences and your desires and your well-being. But if everybody did that, like if everybody tended to themselves and their well-being first, this world would have 90% less problems going on. Crime wise, people hurting other people, wars, like all of the things that are not working in our world and have like not worked because humanity just can't figure out how to evolve past these things is pretty much because like people don't know how to give themselves what they need, what they want. They don't know how to get what they want without taking it from other people. Like everything that I teach is basically to help in the transformation of from where we are to achieving a more heaven on earth. Happy, everyone's healthy, everyone's loving themselves, everyone's loving each other type of vibe.
Mm, yeah. When you talk about vibes, I'm getting my will be certified with the Heart Math Institute in team training and team coherence, which is vibrations.
Yeah.
And learning the science and understanding our vibrations, I have to say good vibes only, high vibes is your podcast. It absolutely is a thing. We're giving off an electromagnetic field all around us. And radical self love is self centered. It says, I love you so much. I'm putting my oxygen mask on at the plane first. And I know that I'm not a mother yet, but I guarantee that 99% of moms are still putting an oxygen mask on their child if an airplane goes down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're here to raise humanity's vibration, which means that we have to have the best oxygen mask on
The
so that we can do
strongest, the
that.
most oxygen going through going through the body, and it's interesting too because I talk with this a lot about my husband right now. He, like, has this really cool app on his phone that's feeding him, like, Bible verses and also, like, direct quotes from Jesus. So maybe it's not in the Bible, but something that he said at some point, and he was talking to me the other day. He's like, "Everything you do is, like, literally in the Bible." Like, when people say like, project all these crazy things onto you that, like, it's woo woo, it's weird, it's whatever. He's like, it's all here. It literally says like to love yourself is to love God. Right. And like that's the way that I look at it. Like when you learn how to radically love, embrace, accept, have compassion, have forgiveness for yourself, not only are you raising your vibration through the freaking roof, but you're able to offer that to everyone else around you. And like the way that I see it, we're all fractals of God, right? So I'm a piece of God, you're a piece of God, this desk is a piece of God, everything is God, everything makes up God. And so to love yourself, to love another, that is God loving itself, right? So just to take it like a little more quantum and not make it all about you, like it is about you, but it's not about you. Depends the way you look at it.
Yeah, if you wanna know God, you have to know you, and some people don't even know where their breath is right now, so how could they possibly know themselves? I love that you brought the religion, and I've been reading a book on called Free Will and does it exist and does it not exist? And, the heart is our processing center. Our heart is sending signals up to our mind. You don't have the free will to tell your heart how to beat. You actually don't have the free will to tell your body to make more red blood cells. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza says, hey, we can come in here and we can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and your body will listen. And that's where it becomes more interesting about how do you really know God? I have a quote I wrote down for myself that says, faith is for fools because I don't have faith. I know.
Mm, yeah.
And when you say love your neighbor as yourself, the problem is that no one loves themselves, and so they do love their neighbor as themselves.
Exactly.
They judge the
People
shit out of their neighbor, and they're hard on
exactly.
themselves, and they're hard
It's
on their
like,
neighbor.
literally the way that people treat themselves is how they're gonna treat other people. The end, I will die on that rock, right? Or sometimes when people are really codependent, they'll treat other people better than they treat themselves, but still it's not like they're treating themselves well and other people well. The
Which
only way
means they're
that you can
treating
do that
themselves terribly, right? In
right, the
order
only way that you
to
can do that is by loving yourself.
Yeah, and we don't really treat people well when we're codependent on them, even though we may treat them better than ourselves.
Well, that's just because 'cause we're trying to get something that we can't give ourselves,
Exactly.
right? We're trying to get the recognition, we're trying to get the love, get the approval from them by overextending ourselves, stepping on our own boundaries, sacrificing, martyring, and it's like, for what? I always tell people, if you have to sacrifice yourself to make someone else well, mathematically, you have helped 0 people because that you just swapped the pain from one body to another body, but you didn't actually make one more healed person in the world. You just did an energy transfer, and it, like, mathematically, it's the same.
Mm. Speaking of energy transfers, this is the heart of why I imagine you choose retreats, the transformative power of attending them. And that also means that there's destructive power for attending some retreats as well. And so there's a reason I brought Kelsey on today because I do think the energy of the retreat that you surround yourself in really matters. And when you have anchored in on what you know and respond to best, which is what you've done, the radical self love, I do not know anyone that radically loves themselves more than you.
Thank you.
Your parents didn't say you must go. It's easier when your parents don't say you must go to college, you must do this. You have looked at things and said, I love myself whether I have a college degree or not. I love myself whether I'm a dancer or not. You've wrestled with your dark night of the soul, and you truly can. We can't empower others with our energy. We can just inspire them to become empowered themselves. I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you create that container in your retreat space.
Yeah. Well, one of the main pillars of my retreat is beauty and safety. So I'm a very visual creature and I'm very energetically sensitive to my environment. So I kind of create my retreat with that in mind. Like I picked a spot, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where if you've ever watched Bachelor in Paradise, like that's the beach where we go. And it's a magical place where one, Mexico is like a slower pace than here, which is very good for the nervous system. It's not quite as capitalistic. It's more family oriented. It's more, rice and chicken on a Sunday kind of vibe. So something about that is very nourishing for the soul just to get out of the US hustle and bustle and go to an international place where it's like slower, more community oriented, more spiritual. And it's a jungle slash beach. So it's like the mountains are holding you and
Mhm.
like supporting you, but the ocean is also like calling you and healing you. So the environment itself is very important to me because you can only create so much transformation in your daily life where you're always doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts. It's harder to do it in that normalcy. But if you take yourself completely out of your life, you can put on a totally different healing hat and a totally new perspective of yourself and what your life could be. So it's like removing yourself from the daily, going to this beautiful paradise, and then the people that I invite, like I vet every woman who comes and I feel into their vibes, make sure it's like a good fit and that the whole group is going to get along. And it always just ends up being like the most magical group of soul sisters. And each group is different women. Some women have attended more than once, my radical self-love retreats because they love it so much. And they're like, "I'm gonna come back every year," or, like, whenever they can. And it really just ends up being like this soul sister vibe of women coming together for the purpose of deepening their love for self and deepening their connection to themselves. And something so powerful happens when you just gather as a group of women with a strong intention. In this case, the intention of growth, healing, rejuvenation, having fun. It's just like, honestly, magic. To answer your
Mhm.
question.
Yeah, it sounds like magic, and you have one coming up in 2025, March, April.
Mhm,
Where
spring
can people f
2025.
Yeah, how do people get vetted by you? How do they apply?
Yeah, they can apply at kelseyAida.com/retreat. And this year I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm kind of switching the order of operations, but at some point we'll get on a video call and I help answer people's questions, or if they've never been to Mexico, they don't know what to expect, get them in on the vibes and let them know how it's going to go and help them book their flight and all that. Cause I don't want people to just show up and be like, they don't know me, they don't know anyone there, like we're staying in a house together. It's a very intimate experience. So that's a part of the onboarding process for sure.
Yeah. This is exciting for me as I hear you talk about this process. I have my previous podcast that'll come out this week was with a woman who owns a retreat center in Costa Rica
Mhm.
and is a 5'1". So you'll hopefully be meeting, or no, she's a 6'2". I take that back. She's a 6'2". But
Uh-huh.
the 5'1", 6'2s, we change the world together.
Yeah, yeah. I
And as
think
you just
Lindsay is a 6'2", if I
Yeah,
remember correctly. Yeah, my
as you
co-host.
talk about the beauty and safety, as I look to purchase a retreat center, we got to look at it behind the stage together a little bit. That's a You've really kind of captured what I also am looking for as well, is we both have empowerment energy. When you show up in empowerment energy and you watch those people, you get inspired. Watching you move is inspiring. It's not a surprise that you are a dancer. And it inspires people to discover for themselves, particularly those folks that don't have the self empowerment energy. And we are taught about self sacrifice in that Bible that you mentioned. And I just don't remember Jesus in any of his quotes telling people to sacrifice themselves. I thought he was like, hey, that's what I'm here for, guys.
You don't have to do it too. I did it
Yeah, all these
already.
things I have done, you shall do and more. I remember that quote as well, specifically. The guy was what we could say, the guy was a manifester.
The guy was a manifester.
But creating a container is in community is like as 5'1", we do have a very good skill set for that. In a high school classroom, I was also very intuitive about how do I create this space so that the teacher, I had 2 locations as a teacher within one classroom. I can go in the back and be hidden. I can be up front with my podium. Like you really have a sense of how do you curate spaces, conversations, ideas. Are there any signature things you bring to your retreat, like a sound bath, for example, that really adds to that transformation and radical self love?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. There is a healing center really close to where we stay that's like on top of the mountain. Like we have a good view from the villa of the beach and stuff, but we're more down in town. But a couple minutes up the mountain, there's a beautiful retreat center where I always have at least one ceremony moment. So we either go for sound healing, a long sound bath, or we'll go for like a cacao ceremony or like an ecstatic dance ceremony.
Mm,
So that's something that actually other women who are local to the area facilitate for me, and I just get to experience with everyone else. So I don't like to facilitate every single thing at the retreat. Let me just put it that way. I
same.
like I like people to experience the medicine of lots of different practitioners. So I like to partner with a yoga teacher, even though I'm yoga certified. Like I don't teach all the yoga. I have a yoga teacher who comes in, Willis. He's amazing. He's the only boy allowed to be a part of the retreat.
Love it.
He's very fabulous and fun and amazing yoga teacher. So he comes in, he teaches yoga. I facilitate Reiki, but I have like my own very specific way of doing it. So I also have a more traditional Reiki practitioner. She comes in, she works on everyone. Patty, she's amazing. We go to the healing center. And like the thing that I think is most interesting about my retreats is like we do almost like group coaching work, which I call the self-love activation. So I'll be speaking on a topic, teaching them, showing them how to do it. We're doing it in partnership. We're working on it. We're getting the self-love seeds planted in the brain, right? And in the nervous system. But then it's like the rest of the day is actually how do we practice loving ourselves in real time? Like, if I loved myself more, I would let myself have more fun. I would let myself feel more free, more confident, more relaxed, you know? So it's like we go to the beach, we ride ATVs through the mountains, we dress up cute and go to a girly dinner. We have just like conversations around we have this big round dinner table at the house where we stay. So we just light the candles and we just converse for hours after dinner with wine, like about what we've been through, what we're struggling with, where we want to go. So it's really just like a really beautiful blend of like a yoga and wellness retreat meets a spiritual girly sleepover with all of it, like all my gifts and intentions woven into that, if that makes sense.
It does. Man, we plan similarly. I'm looking like I wanna call it an unretreat because
Yeah.
as you talk about, like, sitting at dinner when there's dinner and there's drinks, I'm not coaching you, we're having conversation, and my
Yeah,
conversation is enough to move people. That's why my girlfriends wanna have dinner with me all the time. But at the same time, there's also real healing tools that we can bring as well, and they can be optional. Just go chill. Radical self love says, I don't want to do yoga class today. Great. Radical
exactly.
self. Yes. I love that you bring all the elements that you described. I would love every part of that retreat that you talked about that people can learn more about at kelseyaieda.com/retreat. Um, and do you include coaching out after the retreat as well?
Oh, yeah, that's the other main thing. So I feel like well, the crazy thing is I've actually never been to another retreat because I feel like now that I've been creating my own, like, they're just not as good, honestly. From what I've seen, I feel like mine's better, so I just, like, keep doing my own thing. But from what I've heard from a lot of the people that come to my retreats is like, "Oh, I've never been on a retreat where, like, the facilitator actually worked with me afterwards to, like, integrate everything into my life." And I had this sense that when I hosted the very first one, even though I had like no idea mentally what I was doing, like spiritually, I just like was guided to like do all these things. And I was like, I need to offer coaching. I wasn't even a coach at this point. I was just like, I need to offer coaching because what I don't want is for women to come to the retreat, feel transformed, feel opened, feel expanded, and then go back into their old environment, their old life, their old habits, and then nothing really changed. Like, yes, I had a nice week, it was great, but now you're just going back to your old life. What I wanted and intended, and it works for the retreats, is like you come, it's a portal, you're open, you're activated, and then afterwards you're also supported in that process of going back to your life and making the necessary adjustments to make it suit the new you better. So I work with everyone that comes on my retreats for another month after to just integrate everything they've learned and activated and make their actual at home life just that much better, because usually they're elevated, but then they go back to their life and it's the same, right? So it's like, okay, what areas of life do we need to tweak? How can we still keep practicing what we learned at the retreat in daily life and really integrate that? And that's probably one of the number one things that makes the retreat different is that it's more like a program.
Hmm. Yep. What you just described, you're gonna love the 6'2" podcast on Costa Rica. She talks about the integration as well, and, she's using, plant medicine and also plant nutrition,
Mm,
but she talked about they say it's 50% plant medicine and 50% integration, and she really said it's 95% integration and it's 5% medicine.
right.
That integration part is so key. It's funny you mentioned never going on other retreats, but now you're biased to your own. I feel very similarly, like, when I was in the main world, we would have these professional development retreats, which is what they called things, but we never actually went anywhere.
Yeah.
But
So you're not
I
actually
know
retreating.
exactly what parts of those I didn't care for. I know exactly
Yeah.
which parts other people liked. But when I think of curating the own, what you talk about stands out so much to what I see the most successful retreats are. No one is there to tell you who you are. There are leadership retreats where they will literally have you fill out some paperwork or they'll all look at you and they'll tell you who you are. And it's called I am typing as one of the options, or there's a Myers-Briggs, or there's some type of assessment. You're just looking at who you are. You need loving yourself, and when you love yourself, you know yourself. I would never wanna go somewhere anymore and have someone tell me who I am, but there's a part of me when I was looking at doing retreats that wanted to be told who I was.
Mhm. Yeah,
How
instead of
Yeah.
just discovering and, like, if you have the right
Yeah.
facilitator to kind of just guide you inwards and you're like, "This is who I am. I barely touched this my whole life. That's crazy. Look at how amazing I am. What have I been doing out here? Just acting like I'm not this, like, goddess who's worthy of everything I've ever wanted. What the heck?"
Yeah. And I love the human design tool. My dad's the leading numerologist in Sterling, Illinois. He loves using numerology of this is your birth date, this is your time, this is the only thing that's fixed about your story.
Mm,
Every other part of your story you've been creating along the way, but this part is fixed. Let's learn a little bit about what that means, which is what I'm going to offer in my retreats at the villa.
that's fun. I
And it
love
did,
numerology. It's so
uh,
good.
I just I'm just learning about it because dad has been changing the world with it. It's very spot on. And what I'm excited about for our future as we continue to manifest alongside each other is manifesting a collaboration. You have all these great skill sets that I have people that can do those too. So if you just want to come and only do one of those, we can. But my first retreat will be people like you that are doing amazing retreats coming together because who is supporting the powerhouse of Kelsey Aida?
I mean, very few people.
Yeah, 5 and that's why 5-1s have to come together. If you're listening to this and you happen to be a 5-1 profile in human design, message me or Kelsey so we can get you in the group. We are really gonna be leading people into the future, and the future does require us to love ourselves so we can love others better.
Mhm. Amen. Heard
Mm.
that.
We've laughed, we've learned. What else do people need to know about you, Kelsey, or the retreats, before we wrap up today?
Mm, what people need to know about me is that I really just do this work from a place of love. I didn't even know it was going to turn into a business and become the thing that it has been. If you don't know my story, I suffered through a long period of depression. I was basically suicidal. I didn't know how to enjoy my life, but through my relationship with God and the universe, I was like, okay, you gotta send this girl some help. Like, what's a girl gotta do to get some support around here? I need to figure out like how to enjoy my life. And of course, as I asked, I received, and I started diving into, spirituality and emotions and vibrations and metaphysics and manifesting and just feeling good and positive psychology and mindset work and all this stuff. And I started implementing it and it worked. I healed from my depression. I was feeling better than I'd ever felt, and something in me just told me that I needed to share everything that was working with the world, like on a big scale. Not just like, "Oh, I'm going to tell my friends that these things are nice." Like, no, I'm going to show millions of people how to access like their true power and empowerment, because if I could go from like suicidal to living my best life, I mean, I think anything's possible, right? So that is something that's important for people to know about me, because I think they look at me and they just think, "Oh, she's just always been super happy. She's just always been really confident. She's just always been living her best life." And it's like, no, it was a journey. I've been through two really intense, distinct dark nights of the soul already. And in those, I just always came out the other side with so much clarity and wisdom and empowerment that I just really genuinely want to share with everyone, no matter how long it takes me or really like what it cost me. So I'm here for it. That's what people
Mm.
need to know.
I love that. If people have made it to this far, I'm going to ask a really personal question that you can just laugh at and you don't have to answer. But because we share the 6124 channel, Dark Nights of the Soul come along with that channel. Any chance that you started your cycle a week early this month?
You
That's a
know,
no.
I haven't been tracking it. I don't think so. My cycle's pretty regular, so I
So
usually
is
am not
mine.
paying a lot of attention to it unless it's, like, really late, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, what's going on here?" But the couple times it's been late, I was just, like, super duper stressed, and that's why. But, no, I don't think so. I think it's been pretty regular. That's
All right.
interesting, though, that that happened to you.
Well, my other 6124 person I talked to today, she actually said to me that and she's like, and I was freaking out, and this happened, and I was like, wait a minute, it happened to me too.
That's so
Right.
bizarre. That's
So now it's
crazy.
just a coincidence. That's why I always ask for a third time, trust but verify. So not everyone with the channel 61 21 61 channel has been thrown off. And so if you've made it this far, I hope that gave you a good laugh because two women talking
Uh,
about whether or not they synced up simultaneously is just always fun.
it's always a good
Thanks for
time.
tuning in. Kelsey has a bonus episode you can listen to on being a 5-1 manifesting generator. And there's a main episode where you can learn how to Kelsey Aida your life. and start manifesting what it is that you want.